I'm sorry, NASA just found what? So Interstellar is now real. So NASA have just discovered a water planet 100 million light years away from Earth. Now to put that into perspective, 100 million light years is, well, like a billion years. So I don't think we'll be going there anytime soon. The surface of this planet is just complete water. There is no land whatsoever. But it gets even crazier. Every 11 days on this planet is 1 year on Earth. Yeah, literally like in the film. It's mental. We somehow got faster than the speed of light and managed to get there. You'll just spend a couple months on this planet. When you get home, all your friends and that are going to be old, and you're still going to be pretty much the same age. What?
Going from that leaf over there to that. How does the spider bridge that gap?
So the short answer is spiders can fly, but the science behind it is awesome. So spiders can spin what are called gossamer webs, which are really light and silky webs like the ones you see on bushes. And they can electrically charge this silk with a negative charge as it's released. And since leaves and the ground and all of nature is also negatively charged, it's like a magnet. It'll begin to repel the spider. And since there's positive ions everywhere in the atmosphere, opposites attract, and that'll begin to pull the spider up. This whole process basically allows the spider to defy gravity. And spiders have been known to use this technique to travel hundreds or even thousands of miles. Follow for more fun facts.
Terrifying true facts that will keep you up at night. Part 4. Decapitation doesn't always immediately work. There have been some reports of humans living up to 30 seconds after their heads have been removed from their bodies. And there was a chicken in the 1940s named Mike who lived for over a year without his head. There is a whale called 52 Blue which sings at such a high frequency that it is unable to communicate with the rest of its species, making it the loneliest animal on Earth and dooming it to die alone. And finally, mummies weren't actually rare until the late 16th century, when the British decided to start buying mummies to grind up into paint. Oh, and they also started eating them, believing them to have special medical properties. Tag a friend if you're watching this at night, and follow for more.
Disturbing facts you'll wish you didn't know. There's something called anesthesia awareness, which is where you wake up mentally during surgery. You can feel all the pain and you can see, but you cannot move or speak. And the scariest part is, no one even knows you're feeling every cut and incision. And there's stories of people going through 7-hour surgeries feeling every single thing. When you smell something bad, that thing is actually in your nose. When you smell something bad, you're breathing in tiny molecules of that and they're hitting inside your nose, so you might want to be a little careful next time you're inhaling your own fart. Most television laugh tracks were recorded in the 1950s, so you're most likely listening to dead people laughing. Your lip skin is the same type of skin as your anus. They share the same skin because they're the two ends of the pipe called the alimentary canal.
Top 3 rare photos from history. Number 3. Dropping bombs used to actually mean a person was dropping them. This is over 100 years old technology. Get up in a plane and drop the bombs by hand. But also, other objects like nails would rain down at high speeds to penetrate helmets of the enemies. Number 2. And just a year later, giving a good look as the past repeating itself. A boy just staying in front of a downtown Seattle movie theater, which was closed from the public gathering proclamation because of the Spanish flu. It's interesting that humans are pretty much just the same throughout recent history. Non-essentials not working, sickness flare-ups, masks, and death will continue to come and go as it pleases, no matter the best doctor's efforts or crazy conspiracy theorist reasonings. And number 1, photos have strictly been prohibited inside the US Supreme Court while it's in session. That's why it makes only 2 pictures, the only ones to exist. In 1932, German photographer Erich Salomon faked a broken arm to sneak in a camera and take this photo. And the only other one is just 5 years later. A young woman cut a hole in her purse, they hid a camera taking this picture. It was published in Time magazine and spread far and wide, yet the young woman was never actually identified, and at this point, most likely never will be.
Scary fun facts until the Orbeez overflow. If there was a zombie apocalypse, we'd be outnumbered 15 to 1. There was a chicken named Mike that lived for 18 months with no head. Yellowstone volcano would cover almost the entire country if it erupted, and it's well overdue. There's a brain-eating organism known as Naegleria fowleri that lives in lakes and rivers in southern United States. Only one man survived the electric chair, and he said death tastes like peanut butter. Ladybugs eat half their larvae to ensure the survival of the other half, like a natural Thanos. And it looks like I'm out of time. Follow.
The Blue John Canyon incident. On April 26 of 2003, Aaron Ralston took a trip to Utah for a solo descent into the Blue Giant Canyon. While standing on a boulder he thought was sturdy, it suddenly fell from beneath him, dragging him down in the process. By the time they both reached the ground, his right arm had been pinned between the 800-pound boulder and the canyon wall. Only now, 100 feet into a canyon and 20 miles away from the closest road, did Aaron realize his mistake in not telling anyone where he was going. He focused all of his time to try and free himself, but to no success. After a couple of days, he drank the 1.5 cup of water he brought and slowly started drifting in and out of consciousness, until finally, he said his last goodbye 5 days after his fall into the canyon, carving his name into the canyon wall, along with his death date, ending his sad solo hiking story. Until he put his feet up on the boulder and pulled opposite until the bone snapped. He cut the connected skin and muscle with his cheap utility knife and used a pair of pliers to cut through his tendons. 127 hours pinned, and he was finally free. While one-handed, he hiked 6 miles until a family stumbled upon him and gave him some Oreos and contacted rescue. Aaron somehow survived this and is still alive to this day.
Terrifying facts that will keep you up at night, Part 3. Up until the mid-19th century, dentures were made by harvesting the teeth of recently deceased soldiers. It was also not uncommon for rich people whose teeth had rotted from eating too much sugar to purchase the teeth of poor people who had healthier diets to replace their own. Most laugh tracks used in television today were recorded during or before the 1950s. So when you hear one, chances are you're listening to the laughter of people who have been dead for decades. Unlike other predators, polar bears will actively hunt humans for food and sport. In fact, there's a famous saying that if the bear is brown, lie down. If it's black, fight back. And if it's white, good night. Comment if you think you could beat a polar bear in a fight, and follow for more.
Here's some of the creepiest videos on the internet. Part 10. The popular American rapper XXXTentacion was murdered on June 18th, 2018, and his death broke the hearts of many. Many people visited his memorial to leave gifts, but some people captured much more. The YouTube channel The Fam recorded a video trying to communicate with this beloved rapper, but accidentally captured this. But someone else got a lot more than this. The YouTube channel Selva the Explorer got to speak with him through her spirit box. Here's some things he had to say.
What is your favorite song that you ever recorded? What's the name of your favorite song? Are you in the white light? Is there anything else you want to tell us?
The most disturbing cases ever, Part 1. The setting is Springfield, Oregon, 1983. A woman named Diana Downs rushes her children to the hospital, all of them suffering gunshot wounds, including Diana herself. One of them would lose their life due to the severity of the wound, but 2 of them would survive, and Diane herself would also survive. When questioned as to what happened, she had claimed that a carjacker was the one that had done this. However, this was not the case. This was the story that she had given right when she had gotten to the hospital. However, she was extremely calm when delivering the information. This set off a lot of red flags with law enforcement, so they decided to dig even deeper. A large amount of details would begin to stack up against her story that a carjacker was the one that had done this. Even so much as people claiming that they had seen her car driving towards the hospital at a slow speed of around 5 to 7 miles per hour, whereas originally she had claimed that she was driving at a high speed towards the hospital. Due to all of the overwhelming evidence against her, she was found guilty. She briefly escaped in 1987, but she is still incarcerated today. Follow for Part 2.
Disturbing facts you wish you didn't know. Part 10. Left-handed people pass away earlier than right-handed people. More than 2,000 people meet their demise due to doctors' bad handwriting. About 153,000 people worldwide pass away every day. At some point, someone was thinking about you. Tickling was an old torture method back then. Most kidnappers are nurses. Someone could be watching you and you will never know.
I killed her so I could eat her. Prepare yourself for this one. Issei Sagawa, also known as Pang or the Kobe cannibal, is a Japanese murderer, cannibal, and necrophile. He killed Renee Hartevelt in Paris in 1981. Sagawa murdered Hartevelt, then mutilated, cannibalized, and performed necrophilia on her corpse over several days. He was almost immediately arrested and sentenced to a psychiatric hospital. He was sent back to Japan. Here's when things go crazy. Sagawa was able to check himself out of a different psychiatric hospital due to a legal loophole. He has effectively made a living off his crime, and he's even become something of a minor celebrity in Japan. He has even starred in softcore porn reenactments where he bites actors. This guy is still walking free.
On the morning of February 14, 2000, Aisha Degree, who was living in Shelby, North Carolina at the time, packed her school backpack with only these items and walked down the highway in heavy rain and wind, where she was spotted by multiple motorists. But when one approached her, she darted into the woods, and that was the last time she was ever seen. Patricia Banks said, "She doesn't even open the front door for me without getting her mother's permission, and I'm her aunt." Yet, this case is loaded with discrepancies. A motorist said they saw her walking at 2:30 a.m., which is the same time her uncle checked on her and found her sleeping in bed. And the Charlotte Observer claimed 4 motorists came forward, when most agree it was only 2. Some sources even dispute the clothing she had on, up to the time she went to bed and even left the house. But what's assured is Aisha has been missing since that day, and the most common agreed upon result being some kind of grooming from an adult, coaxing her out of her house during the early morning hours, which ended in an abduction. Though since she's been missing for 2 decades, with very little evidence, no one truly knows what happened to Aisha Degree.
The dumbest ways people have removed themselves from the gene pool. Part 1. The location for this story is Lake Washington, located in Washington State. It's a beautiful day out, so a man named Rodney decides to take his jet ski out for a spin on the lake. Everything is going great, but when he looks down, he notices that his battery is starting to run low. Concerned about this and not wanting to be stuck out in the water without help, he decides to pull in to the shore. He then hops off the jet ski, grabs some jumper leads, which he plugs into a 110 volt outlet, and brings them back down to the edge of the water. This is where he planned to plug his jet ski in, get it charged back up, and head back out. However, there's one problem. Water and electricity do not mix. Instead of staying out of the water and keeping the leads out of the water, Rodney went into the water. And I'm sure you can imagine what happened. He swiftly and promptly electrocuted himself, and he was found the next day floating in the lake. Follow for part 2.
The unsolved Black Dahlia murder. On January 15, 1947, the remains of a 22-year-old Elizabeth Short. Her body was cut in half and so pale and drained of blood that the woman who found the body mistook it for a mannequin. The body was cut with surgical precision, leaving no trauma to internal organs and bones. Her face was also cut from her mouth to ears, leaving a permanent smile. There was no blood on the ground, making it believed that the body was moved after she had been murdered. 9 days after she was discovered, an envelope was sent to the Examiner addressed by using individual cut and pasted letters from magazines and newspapers. It read the Los Angeles Examiner and other Los Angeles papers. Here is Dahlia's belongings. Letter to follow. On March, a suicide note was found tucked in a shoe in a pile of men's clothing by the oceans in Venice. To whom it may concern, I have waited for the police to capture me for the Black Dahlia killing, but have not. I am too much of a coward to turn myself in. So this is the best way out for me. I couldn't help myself for that. All this. Sorry.
Here's some of the scariest cursed objects that actually exist. Part 7. Originally supposed to be a wine cabinet, the Dubuque box is now the home of a deadly curse. In 2001, a man bought this box from eBay and immediately started experiencing horrifying nightmares. He eventually gave it to his mom as a gift, and she had a stroke the same day she received it. The box's origins were traced back to a Holocaust survivor. It's believed that this box is possessed by a Dubuque, a malicious demon of Jewish mythology that takes over people's bodies and uses them for evil. The box was finally put in possession of Zach Bagan, a paranormal investigator, where it now resides in his haunted museum. It gained even more attention in 2018 when Post Malone touched the box and has reportedly been dealing with the repercussions of it ever since.
Shocking war facts that history class definitely didn't teach you. Part 9. The world's heaviest man was drafted to the US military at the age of 18. At the time, he weighed 709 pounds and couldn't even get to the draft office, so they came to him. In 1916, there was a proposed amendment to the US Constitution that would put a decision to go to war up to national vote. The catch? Well, if you voted yes, you would have to register to the US Army. In World War II, M&Ms were specifically reserved for the US military because they're easy to carry, heat resistant, and perfect to ration out. The magician Houdini dedicated an entire year of his life during World War I to teach soldiers some of his magic tricks like getting out of handcuffs. When Doug Hegdahl was released as a prisoner of war from Vietnam, he memorized the names of 256 fellow prisoners of war to the tune of Old MacDonald Had a Farm. And Doug is still able to recite it to this day.
This could end the world in a matter of seconds. This thing right here is the nuclear football, and I mean, it's pretty terrifying. You may also know it as just the big red button. This thing could cause millions of people to die, or literally the end of the world, in minutes. And that is crazy. Basically in this is a launch box and a red button. What it is the nuclear codes which control all of the nuclear weapons in the US. Now no, it's not as simple as just press the button and launch all the nukes, obviously not. Now, this thing is kept securely with the Secret Service constantly. If you got within a meter of it, you'd be killed. It's like the most highly protected thing ever. But what would happen if it did actually get pressed? First of all, the president would have to request access to it to get into it, and a message would get sent around to all the high officials, CIA, or Secret Service, everyone, saying what was going to happen and if they wanted to continue. He would then need a majority vote from all of these people to vote yes. It would get cleared by more people, or eventually the president could then press the button for one final time and type in all of the codes, which would then launch all the nuclear bombs or however many he wanted to launch. Not a straightforward process, but it could. It could.
Here are some haunting last photos of people. Part 3. In 1993, James Bulger, a 2-year-old boy, went to the mall with his parents. A 10-year-old boy got James away from his parents and led him out of the mall, where another 10-year-old boy joined them. This is the last photo taken from the mall surveillance camera, which shows James being led out of the mall. The two 10-year-old boys, Robert Thompson and John Venables, led James to a set of train tracks in the woods, where they reportedly beat and tortured the boy to death. The details of what they did to him are too graphic to be mentioned here, but he was found 2 days later. The boys were held in a detention center until they were adults, where they were released under new identities.
And I stood there and I looked at Christy reaching, and the blood that just kept gushing out of her mouth, what do you do?
This is Diane Downs, a truly disturbing lady. Prepare yourself. This is disgusting, disturbing and sad. In 1983, Diane Downs shot her 3 children and drove them to the hospital. One of her daughters was pronounced dead upon arrival. Her other daughter suffered a stroke.
I'm going to remember that night for the rest of my life, whether I want to or not. I don't think I was very lucky. I think my kids were lucky. If I had been shot the way they were, we all would have died.
Diane claimed a strange man tried to steal her car and then shot at everyone. Police later found her secret diary, which detailed her obsession with a married man who did not want kids. She was sentenced to life in prison. Viewers' discretion. Villagers dig up dead relatives and dress them up and spend time chatting to them. The Toraja people of Indonesia's mountainous South Sulawesi region care for their loved ones long after they die. They believe the line between life and death is part of a wider journey into the spiritual world. The Toraja fear that if their ancestors' spirits are unhappy, even in death, every 3 years villagers hold the centuries-old Manin ceremony. Villagers can then tend to their coffins and repair and replace any broken aspects to the structure.
3 creepy things seen in tunnels. Number 3, Risa Tunnel Creature. The Risa tunnels were a project by the Nazi German forces. Its exact purposes are unknown, but these tunnels have a history of paranormal activities. This explorer group is going through a tunnel when they come across a hunched figure. They chase after him, but the creature disappeared right away. Number 2, Narrow Russian Caves. This YouTuber from Russia is exploring caves that are ridiculously narrow. When he comes back to the cave's entrance, someone or something has rummaged through his bag. While he puts his stuff back, a pair of glinting eyes can be seen looking at him from a distance. The eyes do not seem to be human. Number 1, Insane Asylum. This insane asylum in Canada had been abandoned for quite a while when these explorers went to check it out. However, they lose one of their friends and go looking for the guy, only to run into a tall, massive figure wearing a white hospital gown waiting for them.
Halloween 1900. Costumes back then were handcrafted and incredibly creepy. Halloween is a celebration observed in many countries, the eve of the Western Christian feasts of All Hallows Day. Trick-or-treating became very popular in USA and Canada in the 1920s. 1900s costumes or modern day. 1900s is the winner. Holy shit. Imagine this knocking on your door. This is pretty messed up. You've been warned. This is Joe Metheny, a serial killer claiming to have killed 13 people. He would gut his victims and then mix their flesh with animal meat to sell as burgers at his fast food stand. He said the only time he felt vaguely guilty was when children ate the sandwiches. But even then, Metheny justified his actions by telling himself it was their parents' fault for being so stupid and allowing them to eat it. He was found dead in his cell at the Western Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland.
Disturbing facts that may ruin your day. You are the oldest that you have ever been and the youngest that you will ever be. Your bed absorbs 26 gallons of your sweat every year. There are 15 dead people for every one person alive. Science can't measure exactly how strong a gorilla is, so there's no sure way on how to contain them. The gorilla enclosures at zoos are just based on trust. Every 18 minutes, someone in the United States has a brain aneurysm that ruptures. Vampire moths are real and can feed on the blood of humans. A jar of peanut butter contains 10 or more rodent hairs and can contain up to hundreds of insect fragments. Big Bird almost joined NASA's Challenger mission to help kids become more interested in space. Millions of kids would have watched Big Bird and the Challenger space shuttle explode on live television.
Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you. Part 18. Ancient Egyptians had a fertility ritual that involved both goats and alligators. The men would flip the alligators on their backs and have their way with them, and the women would go to town on the goats. Colonial couples who hadn't gotten married yet were forced to sleep with a block of wood in between them. This practice was known as bundling and would prevent the two from any impure touching. Before Greek soldiers went off to war, they would give their wife what was called an olis bakalix, aka a stale loaf of bread that was meant to keep them entertained. Sounds like a whole lot of yeast infections. If you were a man with a floppy jalopy in the 1300s, it was quite illegal for you to get married in France. And if you were accused of having this problem, you would have to stand in front of a court of law and bash your bishop to prove that all your parts worked.
Disturbing facts that will ruin your day. Firstly, you know these vacuum toilets that are most commonly used on planes and cruise ships? Well, there have been many reports of them sucking the rectum out of people when they flush. Next, this is just disappointing. 1 in 4 Americans actually believe that the sun rotates around the earth. Now, studies show that the average person will wait 5 months of their lifetime for red lights to turn green. You know when you're watching a movie or TV show and you hear these laugh tracks in the background? Well, most of them were recorded in the 50s, so you're hearing dead people laugh. This will ruin your childhood. The Red Power Ranger, Ricardo Medina, pleaded guilty to killing his roommate with a sword. Finally, you are now closer to death than you were when you started this video.
3 TikTokers who committed horrible crimes. Number 3, Claire Miller. Claire Miller was a 14-year-old TikToker from Pennsylvania. She used to look after her older sister Helen, who had cerebral palsy. However, one night Claire had a breakdown and killed her disabled sister. Claire was known to be involved in witchcraft, and eventually had her account removed by TikTok. Number 2, Isabella Guzman. Isabella Guzman was a TikToker from Colorado, who was a problem child, and did not get along with her mom. After a huge fight between them, Isabella decided to kill her mom. She waited for her mom to get back home from work, and stabbed her to death. Isabella pleaded insanity in court after her arrest. Number 1, Jin Kid. Jin Kid was once a popular impression artist on TikTok. Jin is convicted in the murder of his wife, and her friend Rayburn, who she cheated on Jin with. This had led to their separation, until Jin went to her apartment and killed them both. Jin's TikTok account has been deleted ever since.
What is the most disturbing fact about the human body? The fastest killing virus takes around 4 days to kill you. That would be Ebola. Your immune system can kill you in 15 minutes. Some people suffer from exploding head syndrome, which causes them to hear a loud bang when they wake up. If you have a surgery where they need to move your organs around, they might not function for a day as the body assumes that they are dead. I noticed this after my abdominal surgery. When I turned over in bed, my guts seemed to fall from one side to the other. Mentioned to my doc and she confirmed it was my bowels rearranging themselves. Stomach acid is very powerful. It would burn right through us if we didn't secrete mucus every few hours. There are a vast number of ways that your body can malfunction and kill you with little or no warning. An aneurysm can go undetected until it bursts and kills you. Getting hit in the chest just the right way can stop your heart. You can encounter an allergen that never previously provoked an immune response that freaks out your body so badly that you die. You literally just never know if your body will just die. This is gonna end up on one of those TikToks with Subway Surfers gameplay.
3 creepy Disneyland secrets you didn't know about. Number 3, skeletons. Most people assume that the theme ride props in Disneyland are made of plastic. However, the Pirates of the Caribbean ride uses actual human skeleton as props. This was exposed in a book by Jason Sorrell. Disney acquired these props from the UCLA Medical Center. Number 2, ghosts. The famous Space Mountain ride is said to be haunted. Even though it sounds kind of ridiculous, the ghost has been caught on camera and usually gets into an empty seat. A different ghost has also been spotted on the ride and has been named Disco Debbie due to her glowing figure. Number 1, the Paris Mystery. Disneyland's darkest secret has to do with the Paris theme park. In 2010, news outlets ran stories of a chef at the park who mysteriously disappeared. However, he had written the following message before disappearing: "I don't want to go back to Mickey's house." The case remains a mystery to this day.
3 shocking videos that can't be explained. Number 3, gliding ghost. This family in New Mexico, USA, is having dinner one night when the CCTV footage running live on their TV shows something weird. The video shows their driveway and a ghostly white figure who's gliding by. The figure has no feet, leading people to assume it's a ghost. Number 2, haunted antique store. This antique store in England is allegedly haunted with spirits. It's assumed that due to the number of old stuff that belongs to dead people, it's not really a surprise. This video shows a deer statue falling to the ground without any reason. Number 1, missing person. This CCTV footage is from an airport in Bulgaria. The guy in the yellow shirt is a German citizen named Lars. He was allegedly behaving very mysteriously this day. He was even seen running inside the airport. Lars disappeared after getting out of the airport and was never seen again. 3 chilling discoveries by urban explorers. Number 3, dungeon. This empty property in Canada was found to have a padlocked dungeon. The dungeon had cans of petrol and looked like it was used for disturbing criminal activities. However, when police came to search the dungeon, the house mysteriously caught fire overnight. Number 2, abandoned amusement park. An explorer in the Lancashire region of England was walking through the woods when he came across broken mannequins and metal beams. It was discovered that the place was an abandoned amusement park from the 60s, which had been shut down and was now considered haunted. Number 1, gravestone. 2 urban explorers were searching a $13 million worth mansion. The mansion had been abandoned some time ago, but had been relatively well preserved. That when the pair went into the basement and found a gravestone of a 7-year-old boy named Little Jack. No one knows what a grave was doing inside a mansion. 3 bone-chilling videos of ghosts. Number 3, highway child. A driver named Mitch Kuhn was traveling on the highway with his parents when their dashcam captures strange footage. The camera shows the ghost of a child mysteriously appear on the road, just as Mitch drove past it. The police searched the area, but didn't find anything. Number 2, tunnel monster. The YouTuber Urbex Hill was exploring an old tunnel in West Virginia when he starts hearing strange noises. The tunnel starts fogging up when he flips over his camera to the side. In the distance, he sees 2 pairs of eyes staring back at him. He explains how the figures disappeared right after. Number 1, the unwanted birthday guest. This family was experiencing paranormal activities in their house in southern USA. During the birthday celebrations of their little girl, the faucet starts running. The cabinet behind them opens, and stuff falls out of it. 2 drawers start banging open and shut here too.
5 pictures with disturbing backstories. Snake charmer Oli Konsamsud in moments before his cobra bites him. He died 3 days later from his injuries. Photo taken seconds before the tsunami hit and killed a group of people in Indonesia. The digital picture was found by the search crew. The night before 9/11, Joe Kelly and his two sons at a Yankee game. This is the last picture ever taken of Kelly. The next morning, he drove into Manhattan to go to work. This picture is seconds before a circus performer fell 121 feet after losing his balance on a wire between two hotels. Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon were hiking in Panama when they captured this selfie. This photo was found in their backpack, which was all that was left of them.